Welcome to Season 2 of the SOAR podcast, the place for creative entrepreneurs who want to build healthier, happier, more profitable self-employed businesses. I'm your host, Ray Hyde Cornell, business mentor at Chiron Consulting and CEO and senior copywriter at Cornell Content Marketing. Get ready to soar. Welcome to the SOAR podcast. On today's episode, I have with us Nicky Billou. Nicky, tell our listeners what it is you do and what your business is.
Well, first of all, thanks very much for having me on the show. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be here. I believe very strongly that the entrepreneur is society's greatest hero. Mm-hmm. It's because that man or that woman has a dream, has a vision, and that they dare to go out there and make it happen for themselves, that every good thing in our world happens. All business innovation happens because of the courage of an entrepreneur. All social progress is possible because of the entrepreneur, because God knows the government isn't doing anything worth talking about in that arena either. Yeah. And I also think that not a whole lot of people actually support entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. Certainly the government doesn't. And so everything I do is about serving the entrepreneur, helping them win, helping them be more successful. And essentially my business is all about helping great entrepreneurs add 1 to 2 zeros to their annual income while working 10 to 20 hours less per week.
I like that you say adding 1 to 2 zeros. That makes it sound like such a small thing. But if I think about our annual revenue, and if I think about adding 1 to 2 zeros, my mind goes, holy shit, that would be life-changing. So, I mean, this is no small thing, even though you're making it sound very accessible and doable and achievable. You're not talking about a small impact on businesses that you're having. How do you go about doing that?
What a great question. If you don't mind, I'd like to answer that question by first sharing my backstory.
Yeah, okay. Please.
So I'm originally an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran. And when I was a boy, the Islamic Revolution was happening in Iran. And my late father, he could see the writing on the wall. He could see that this was not going to be the greatest place for him to raise his family anymore. So he got us out of Iran, and eventually we settled in Canada. And I thank God every day for my late father and his prescience in being able to do that, because he allowed us to go from living in tyranny to living in freedom. And I know today in the West, it's very fashionable for a certain segment of the population to basically trash the West and say, oh my God, this is such an oppressive place, so racist, so sexist, so horrible. Well, listen, I'm from Iran. I don't know, Ray, if you've been following the news in Iran, but there's a young woman there by the name of Mahsa Amini, 22 years old. She went outside with a headscarf, which is required by law in Iran, and some of her hair was showing. She was stopped by the so-called morality police and beaten to death for the crime of going outside as a woman with her hair uncovered. This has sparked massive demonstrations and protests by girls and women in Iran. 13-year-old girls, 14-year-old girls, 15-year-old girls, 16-year-old girls are protesting and marching into the face of guns and being shot and beaten to death. Over 200 of them have been killed to stand up for their rights. So when people say to me, the West so oppressive, I push back hard and go, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. This is the greatest, freest, most incredible place on earth. All the rest of us need to stand up for that freedom. And for those charlatans who are trying to lie to us and tell us that this isn't free, we got to push them back and really strongly counter that narrative. And their favorite tactic is to accuse you of having hate in your heart. And it's just because they have hate in their hearts and they don't want to allow the rest of us to do that. So exactly, I push back real hard against that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And to me, freedom is everything. It's everything inside. Every human breast beats the living heart of freedom. Yeah. We all desire it. We all want it. We all need it. You know what I'm talking about? It's so innate and essential to who we are as human beings. And to me, freedom free expression, free enterprise. That's the key to us being able to live the type of life that we want to live and we deserve to live. You follow what I'm trying to say over here? So me, that's what I'm all about. And my late father, he was an entrepreneur. He was a believer in freedom. He practiced free enterprise. He was the greatest man I've ever known. If you needed a job, Ray, he'd get you a job. If you were trying to start a business, he'd set you up to get started. Even if you were competing with him, he didn't care about that. He just wanted to help people. And if you worked for him and you wanted to buy a house, car, or apartment, and you didn't have enough money, Dad would make sure that you had the money to buy that car, that house, or that apartment. And you might think to yourself, whoa, who does that? Well, the late, great Nicky Billou, that's my father, he did that. And on top of that, you might go, well, why would he do that? Like, why? And well, number one, he was a Christian and he believed he'd been blessed by God Almighty. And it was his duty as a Christian to share those blessings with others. But secondly, Dad did it because he could. He was successful. He had the financial resources to help other people. And I wanted to be just like that. He was my hero. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And when I became an entrepreneur, eventually, the first thing I realized, there's a lot of good people out there that are entrepreneurs. You know what I mean, Ray? They got good hearts. They want to make a difference. They want to build something for themselves, for their families. They want to leave a legacy for the next generation, generational wealth. They want to help their clients. They really do. They're good people, but they're scared. You know what they're scared of? They don't want to come across as pushy or salesy. They don't want to reek of commission breath. You know what I'm saying? They want to come across as good people. So the sad part is that sometimes they back off. They don't go after business they should go after because of that. And then some charlatan marketers, some person out there who doesn't care as much about people, they're going to go out there, they're going to sell the sizzle, they're going to get the business, and they're not going to deliver. The sum total of goodness in the world goes down. And you know what I saw? I saw that tragedy was happening in our world. Hearts were breaking. So I thought, what if we could do something here for these folks, these entrepreneurs? What if we could help them reframe selling to serving? I mean, nobody wants to be sold. You don't want to be sold. I don't want to be sold.
No,
but
no one
everybody
likes to be sold
wants
to.
to be served by a caring champion, by an advocate, by a good person. And this is what I help entrepreneurs see. So if you want to be a thought leader, if you want to be seen as a go-to expert in your field, the first thing you've got to do is you've got to be seen as a person who cares. You know, the great American poetess Maya Angelou, she said, people will not remember what you said to them. People will not remember what you did. But people will always remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
You're a good person. Show your heart and care. That's step one. Be ready to fight for a group of people. And then you got to narrow who those people are. That's step two. You can't be all things to all people. That doesn't work. You got to narrow your focus. You got to help a certain group of people with a particular set of problems. What is business after all? Business is about solving problems for people for profit. Problems, people, profit. PPP, right? Now it's acute problems for good people for a wonderful profit. That's how it's got to be. If you do that, if you understand that and you narrow your focus, you are going to rock it out of this world. And I'll tell you a little story about somebody that came to us for some help. This man, he was 25 when he came to us. He was a good dude. You know what I mean? One of those good dudes, like people that you see, man, this is a good guy, kind of guy, you know, you'd like want your mom to meet. You know what I mean? Like that's that kind of great guy. And he wanted to help people. Like he was a personal fitness trainer and he had a lot of knowledge and he really wanted to help people. But when he came to me, I said, hey, who do you work with? He goes, I can work with anybody. Really, I can work with anybody. I said, no. Who do you work with? No, really, anybody. I said, anybody with a wallet, the pulse? He goes, yeah. I said, no, that's not going to work. You got to narrow your focus. He goes, okay. You know what? I work with doctors. My dad's a doctor. I love my dad. And doctors, they do really well. They make lots of money. And I go, okay, listen, buddy, that's not going to work. Hey, I work with doctors. They're like my dad. They make lots of money. That's not a good message. It didn't work. He goes, okay. You got to narrow more, right, Nicky? I work with cardiologists. Cardiologists make more money than doctors. They're even better people to help people. I go, no, buddy, it's not going to work. Didn't work. But all of a sudden, he started to serendipitously work with a person with a missing limb, a Paralympic athlete, an African-Cuban man with a really cool name. You're going to love this name. Papito Wilson. So Papito Wilson, this dude was just badass. And Dan, my friend and client, he worked with him. He really got him in shape, got him ready for another Paralympic Games. He won some medals. It was all great. And I could really see that this was really touching his heart. And he came to me, he goes, Nicky, this is really touching my heart. I want to work with people with missing limbs. And I said, that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. So he started to do that. And all of a sudden, Ray, in 6 short weeks, he signed up 400 clients.
Oh my God.
400. He was making $1,500 a month, and he lives in my hometown of Toronto. Toronto is the New York City of Canada. Mm-hmm. If you know anything about the cost of living in New York City, you know a lot about the cost of living in Toronto. $1,500 a month doesn't really cut it. You know what I'm saying? You have to borrow money from mom and dad. But I'm telling you, 6 weeks, 400 clients, he couldn't do one-on-one anymore. He had to go to group. He added not 1 0, but 2 zeros to his income. He went from 4 figures to 6 figures a month. Wow. Now, why did that become possible, Ray? It became possible because his message was to a group of people everyone else was ignoring. Like other trainers go, oh, they got missing. I can't work out. Forget it. He was like, no, I know they can work out. You can work out. I'm going to make you strong. I'm going to make you a badass physical beast of a man or a beast of a woman. You're going to have big cojones or big ovaries. You're going to win. And that message landed, girl. It landed. And these folks just went, oh my God, yeah, I love it. Now you put yourself in the shoes of someone with a missing limb. And by the grace of God, you and I have all our limbs, and that's a wonderful thing. But they're probably not thrilled that that's the case. They're probably feeling they can't do everything, you know, an able-bodied person can do. They probably feel they can't work out. They can't live the same life. They're self-conscious. His message wasn't just, I'm going to make you physically strong. I'm going to work out with you. His message was, you are just as awesome as anybody else.
Well, and that's really that pivot from the way that everybody approaches marketing and selling themselves. It's a very competitive nature that we have in the West of, oh, we have to, you know, get one over on the next person or be better than the next guy. But I love the example that you gave of your father, where he was not all about competition. He was about collaboration and about serving and about helping others. And the same thing happened for your client when he shifted his perspective from, oh my God, I can just work with anybody. I'm just going to try and make as much money as I possibly can. And he was in this very competitive, kind of frenetic headspace. And you shifted him over to this mindset of serving and really tapping into that deeper passion of what really can you hold on to, what can sustain you for the long haul, because it matters so much to you. Shifting over to that serving mentality put him in that collaborative state with his clients. And then it was like selling just naturally happened. You didn't even have to try.
Exactly. Brilliantly put. Brilliantly put.
So one of the things that you're focused on helping people achieve is working less while making more. Now, this is something that I think a lot of people who are drawn to entrepreneurship and, you know, allured by the social media images and Instagram, whatever's, that's what appeals to them. They go, oh yeah, I just want to work like 4-hour work weeks, and I want to sit by the pool or at the beach and drink martinis and margaritas and just make tons and tons and shit tons of money. But is that really what I don't think from talking with you that that's what you're trying to help people achieve. You're not looking to help them get to this kind of like, you know, pseudo glamour state where they just have tons of money rolling in passively, but also you want them to have these healthy, balanced, fulfilling lives where work is not consuming them to the point of completely burning them out. So what is your approach to this working less but earning more philosophy?
What a great question. I want to just address this, you know, the Instagram, YouTube glam lifestyle that everybody's got out there. That's not real. That's fake, man. I mean, that most of the folks in those videos, not all of them, but most of them, they've got borrowed cars and borrowed houses, and they're trying to sell you on a dream that's about making them rich and making you poor. It's not about helping you win. They're what I call charlatan marketers, man. These folks, they're just turn that crap off unless you want to be entertained, because it can be entertaining. I will grant you that. But look, like I said, you got to be all about people. Business is not a numbers game. It's a people game. Write this down. Business is not a numbers game. It's a people game. The person sitting in front of you, that's someone's daughter, someone's son. someone's wife, someone's husband, someone's brother, someone's sister. They're a hero to somebody. They have hopes, dreams, fears. They've been disappointed by life, and they've probably been disappointed by someone like you who's promised them the moon and delivered squat.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's first and foremost. Now, if you want to work less, though, you need to be outcome driven and outcome focused. People don't buy their way into something, your program. They buy their way out of something, their pain. I never talk about my program when I come on shows like yours. Never. You know, like if people ask me, I'll tell them what I told you. I help people add 1 to 2 zeros to their income while working 10 to 20 hours less a week. That's all I say. Yeah. Because people listening to the show, they're not interested in Nicky and his program. They want to know, is Nicky a good person? Does Nicky have something to say that might help me with the struggles I have in my daily life? If so, they're going to keep listening. If not, they're going to tune out. And that's the truth is, you know, so if you're an outcome driven coach or consultant or service provider, and you are all about providing outcomes for people, then the first thing you got to understand is that anything that makes the outcome more likely is good. Anything that makes the outcome less likely is bad. So this is one thing that a lot of coaches struggle with. They undervalue themselves and they undercharge for their services. And when you ask them why, there's only 2 reasons. You know, whatever the answer that comes out of their mouth, it's one version of these 2 things. I don't believe I'm worth it, or I believe I'm worth it. I don't believe anybody will pay me. Yeah. One of those 2. So if you don't believe you're worth it, either that's a belief issue, which we can work on and help you fix, or you're really not good enough and you got to upgrade your skills. So that's a different story.
Yep.
But if you know you're worth it and you think no one will pay, it's because you are benchmarking yourself to the competition. But the competition isn't another coach. The competition is that person's belief in whether or not it's possible for them to get out of their hell and get into the heaven that they seek. That's the only real competition. And if you're into helping them get out of that, if you really want somebody, so let's just use an example, right? Let's just say you were a relationship coach. I know you're not, but let's just say you were, okay? And let's say you worked with women who owned their own business that was at least $5 million, who are 40 plus, who are going through a divorce. And let's say your whole shtick was, I'm either going to help you fix your marriage so you don't have to get divorced, or if that's not possible, I'm going to help you do it in the most honorable way possible so you don't destroy each other and your kids.
And there's that
right?
specificity that you talked about before. That's you
right.
getting super narrowed in on your target audience.
Yeah, exactly. And let's say that's what you did. And let's say you had clients and these women were good women. They had kids and, you know, they came to you and they told you, you know, in a good conversation, you saw that it would cost them at least $3 million if they got divorced, like cash costs. The emotional cost is they would feel like they were a bad wife, a bad mother, a bad person. They would beat themselves up. The health costs is they'd be stressed out. They wouldn't be able to sleep right. Maybe their hair would be falling out in clumps because of the stress, you know. And the relational cost is, besides the relationship breaking up, they'd be fighting with their children and with other family and loved ones. Yeah. And then let's say you really help them see that 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, what would happen if this didn't get addressed? And they're like, okay, great. All right, I got it. I don't want this anymore. I'm out of here. Yeah, let's fix this. So how do we do this? What do you charge? What's the investment? And you said, oh, $500. They're going to go, what? What? 500? Are you serious? They're not going to trust you.
Right.
They're going to think you don't know what you're doing.
You don't know what you're doing. Yeah,
based on the price. Now, if you said $50,000, they're going to trust you. They're going to go, okay, that might be a lot of money, but okay, I get it. I get why you charge it. You need to charge enough, not to gouge people, but to have enough leverage on them so they show up ready to work, ready to take action. Okay, I'm a knife collector. Okay, I'm a knife collector. I love knives. I have over 100 knives. This is one of my knives. It's an Emerson Kershaw. It's a lovely knife. It's on my desk. It's $40. It's got a G10 handle, which is grippy. You know, it's tough. It's designed. It's a tactical knife, right? $40. I toss it on my desk. Now, I have another knife. My other knife is in this case. This knife is a one-of-a-kind knife. It was designed custom for me by Greg Lightfoot. Observe this knife. Observe the difference between those two knives. Now, just based on looking at these two knives, which one do you think costs more?
Oh, the custom one, of course.
2 more zeros compared to the cost of that one. Now, do you think I'd ever just toss that on my table?
No, you take care of it. You want to make sure it's not sitting out in the rain. You want to make sure that you're not letting it
Not in the
go
sun.
uncared for. Yeah.
Exactly. It's oiled. Why?
Because you have
Because
that
I
buy-in
paid
to
a
it.
price and I value that at a certain level. When someone pays you a price to solve a problem, you show up ready to work, it makes your job easier, and it makes it easier for them to get the outcome. And also for you, if you don't get what you should get, you won't give what you should give. Yeah. Undercharging hurts the client and hurts you. Hurts the client because they won't get the outcome and they won't get the value of the solution, and hurts you because you won't get what you should be getting. And I tell you, it's not as simple as saying, okay, slap on a high price. It's not that simple. There's an art and a science to it, and I teach people how to do it. But we want to help you own your value and own doing this. And doing this right means you get to work less and make more money.
Well, and that money exchange, that's an exchange of energy. It's an exchange of commitment and buy-in to the relationship. It's you two saying, okay, we're going to work together. And this is how we are showing that we are bringing more to the table to make this work more impactful for both of us. And if you, like you said, if you have those lower rates because you're trying to be accessible to more people or whatever your mental excuses might be, ultimately you're saying, okay, it's okay for you to bring less of yourself to the table when we come to work together.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Also.
And the other piece that you mentioned is being very outcome focused. And I think people can really confuse this with being super salesy, but really what you're saying is you're focusing on a problem that they're having and you are providing the solution, which is that outcome in the mechanism of being of service. And so I think this, anytime we start throwing numbers around, adding 1 to 2 zeros to your revenue and things like that, people tend to kind of tense up and they go, oh, this is really salesy. This is really, corporate sounding, but it's really in how you're delivering your message and how you're choosing to work with people that allows you to be in that position of service and cooperation, as opposed to in that, let me just sell you something and let me just get your money kind of relationship that a lot of people steer away from in the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah, the buyers evolved. They're not going to put up with that anymore. Anyways, it's so easy to look people up online, so you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot by getting the wrong type of reputation. Anyways, right. So, from my point of view, if you're in business, your job should be to serve people. But serving people must include you. You must win too. You got to believe you can win. And don't fight for your limitations. Fight for your dreams. Don't let your fear choke out your dreams. And most people, their fear around sales is what prevents them from serving and really helping somebody. Yeah.
And these are concepts that we talk a lot about in my non-sleazy sales tactics workshop, where we say, if you don't like selling, then don't sell. Just come to the conversation curious about what is your problem. And then when they ask you, okay, do you have a solution? Explain how you work, explain your solution. And if the collaboration matches up, if their problem matches up with your solution, then it's a no-brainer. You don't have to sell. You are mutually helping one another. You by getting paid, them by getting your solution.
100%. 100%.
On that note, we are going to take a super short commercial break and we'll be right back. Hey, this is Ray. Ready to build a business that supports a life you love, a life you've always dreamed of? It's time to stop passively dealing with what's right in front of you and start deliberately designing your own future. That's exactly what we do in private business mentoring. You and I work together to create a completely custom to you business model that gives you everything you want and need while protecting you from stress and burnout. Ready to get started? Go to chironconsulting.us/mentoring to learn more. There you can also book a free call with me so we can start getting to know each other and see if mentoring is right for you. Plus, I love working with early stage entrepreneurs. That's why my mentoring packages are priced so low. I want you to soar. So don't worry about having to shell out thousands of dollars. Not here. Just go to chironconsulting.us/mentoring to learn more. Okay, Nicky, we are back. And there is something else that I've been dying to ask you about. So you mentioned that your family line comes from a long line of masters of destiny. I love this phrasing because a lot of what I run into with freelancers and self-employed creatives and entrepreneurs nowadays is people telling me, Ray, I really want to make this happen. I really wish my life could look like this, but I'm not seeing any opportunities. These things just don't happen. These perfect gigs, they just don't exist out there. And it drives me absolutely mad because people are looking at one sliver of the pie of what has been done so far, and they're ignoring the endless opportunities that they could create. This is the piece that a lot of people are not willing to look at. They're looking for opportunities that already exist in the world, as opposed to thinking of things like, oh, well, if I want my life to look like this, then I would need to create this system or this business or this opportunity for myself. And it seems like that's something that maybe you got that from your father. Maybe this is something that runs deep throughout your entire family line, but tell me about your philosophy on this being master of your own destiny and creating opportunities for yourself.
That's a great question. You know, I think that leaders are readers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you just go on Instagram and YouTube and the mainstream media to get your information, you're screwed. You're screwed. They don't have your best interest at heart. And the crap that's on there is curated just to like titillate you. You know, it's, pardon me for saying this, but it's almost a form of info porn.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a satisfying relationship with information, right? It's just like, oh, let's get excited for 5 minutes and then let's go back to whatever we're doing. You're never going to be satisfied. You're never going to deeply learn anything. Okay. And you need to be somebody who is out there reading. And one of the things we teach thought leaders is you also got to create your own independent IP. And I just want to show you something that we teach people inside of one of our programs. So this is an area of IP for me called high performance. I've got 9 different boxes aimed at business owners. You know what I mean? So this area, like high performance for business owners. And it goes, who are you? Well, my category is like, I'm an executive high performance coach for business owners. I'm like the coach that wins all the championships. I'm like the Nick Saban and John Wooden, the Phil Jackson. And the problems I solve, most business owners feel alone and overwhelmed. They're burning out and don't see a way to both live a balanced life and massively scale their business. So my history is, you know, my clients have between 2-folded and 100-folded their revenues. They've hired ideal employees. They've engaged their employees and retained them, right? One of my clients, a restaurant owner, went from failing due to the lockdowns to basically adding 11.5 million to his business in like 6 months, 4 million in profit. And this is my program. It's a year-long coaching program, et cetera. I'm obsessed with free enterprise and helping, you know, free enterprise-minded entrepreneurs win big. I'm heart-driven. You know, my uniqueness, I have a track record of helping a dozen plus entrepreneurs at 7, 8, 9 figures a year to their business. And I want freedom-minded entrepreneurs to become stupid rich and be valued and acknowledged for what they created, right? So this is like for one group of people that I help. These are 57 pieces of intellectual property that I've developed. out of this, I've created mastermind programs. I've written several books. Here we go. I've done talks, you name it. So when we teach people how to pull out the best of what they have inside of them, this will take away some of that nervousness about, is it possible? Are there opportunities? One of my mentors used to be a client of mine when I was a fitness trainer. His name's Robin Sharma. I don't know if you've heard of him and his famous book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, sold 15 million copies. Really, really great book. You got to read The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. It's a great book.
It's a catchy title too. I'm going to go look it up right after.
That's why it sold so many copies. So I used to train Robin and show up at his house at 4:30 in the morning, nuts, right, to work out. And, we would have these amazing mastermind talks while I was training him. And he said to me one day, Nicky, if you want to double your income, I can show you how to do it. In less than a year, I go, okay, I'm game. Tell me. I was eager. He said, simple, triple your investment in personal and professional development. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. So that was a game changer for me when I started to do that. I've put over $250,000 in my personal and professional development. Okay. And counting, continue, right? And every time it was a huge decision, but today it pays up for itself within 1 to 2 months. You know what I mean? And
so are you saying then that in order to get over this fear of, oh, I have to go after the opportunities that exist and I cannot create any opportunities of my own, people have to expand themselves. They have to learn. They have to open their eyes to what others have done to see what's possible so that they can start to see what they might be able to accomplish.
100%. You need to be in the right rooms. You need to have the right coaches and mentors. You need to triple your investment in personal and professional development. You need to read books. I'm on Goodreads.com. If anyone here is on Goodreads, go friend me on Goodreads. I've done the reading challenge since 2015 on Goodreads. And this will be my 4th straight year of reading at least 100 books.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, now half the books I read are fiction because I believe fiction ennobles the soul.
Yep.
And it helps relax me. I think fiction's amazing and wonderful. There's people who don't read fiction. I think that's a big mistake.
Yeah, we're not saying you have to go read a bunch of textbooks all in a row, but expand yourself. Even the thing I love about fiction books too is you start getting into these fantasy worlds and it starts to break down your kind of concreteness with the 3-dimensional world. It makes you realize, oh, what if? And when you start tapping into that curiosity and that imagination and that whimsy, you start taking the limitations that society puts on you less seriously.
Exactly. 1,000%. And I think that's super, super, super important for people to do, and if you're listening to this show and you're in business and you don't have your own coach, and yet you're a service provider, a coach yourself, a consultant, that's kind of nuts if you think about it. First of all, it's hypocritical, and think about it. Every major sports team invests not in one coach, but in multiple coaches, because that's what allows them to protect their investment in the athletes that they have. You need to do the same. You've got to invest in yourself.
I like that you bring up this analogy of sports coaches, because especially as the coaching world has really boomed in the last 5 to 10 years, I think people kind of go, well, I'm not a coach like an NFL coach or a professional athlete coach, but really you are. Whoever is in that coaching or consulting role, you are helping people train and refine a skill set, whether that's mental, emotional, sales skills, person skills, whatever it might be, mindset skills. You're helping them refine those skills, just as an athletic coach helps an athlete refine physical skills and physical performance. And it's the same sort of dynamic where if you have mental blocks, if you have generational trauma that you need to get through, whatever it might be, you need to work with somebody who can help you overcome those performance issues if you're going to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, you must have mentorship, coaching. You must be part of peer groups. You must go to conferences. it's super important. And you want to find somebody who has a track record of results, who's not full of crap. That's super, super important. And can I share a story with you?
Yeah, please.
So a few years ago, a lady came to us. She had an illustrious pedigree. She had been the country director for Canada for one of the largest and oldest personal development companies in the world. And she decided she was going to bring someone on board to work with her as like a co-CEO to help her. Kind of like Apple in the early days when Steve Jobs brought in John Scully, back in the late 80s, early 90s. And just like the situation with Apple, at first she really got along with this fellow, but eventually they had a bit of a falling out. And just like Apple, when Steve Jobs got pushed out by John Scully, she got pushed out by this fellow who she brought in from the company. And she floundered for about 18 months. She was introduced to us. And, we really could see her pain, and we loved on her, and the whole community did. And we helped her get clear on her message and her ideal target markets. She's going to work with entrepreneurs, primarily men, 10 million plus, who were burnt out. And it was starting to affect the business, starting to affect their personal life, their health, everything. Great target market, great message. And with our help, she got out there. Her first month, she did $10,000 in profit. Her second month, she did $12,000. In her third month, she did $18,000. Wow. But in her fourth month, she did $62,200.
What? That's a crazy jump.
Crazy, right? Now, she lives in Ottawa in Canada, and I live in Toronto. That's about a 5-hour drive. And my oldest son, I have 2 sons, they both play sports, but my oldest son plays soccer, or the real football, as I call it, because it's actually played with your feet, right? Unlike American football, which is really not, except for the kicker, 3-4 times a game. So he had a tournament in Ottawa, and she had a son his age. So I called her up and I said, hey, listen, my son and I were coming to Ottawa for this tournament. How'd you like to come over with your son and, watch the game and maybe grab some lunch with us? And she goes, yeah, sounds great. So we all did that and spent a few hours together. And then, she went off home and we drove back to Toronto. A few weeks later, we had one of our quarterly branded thought leader immersion workshops. These are our 3-day workshops where we really teach people everything they need to know to get them to add that 1 to 2 zeros to their business while working 10 to 20 hours less per week. And we were at the part of the workshop where we did what we call the upsell for the new people. You know what I mean? To upsell them into our full year program. So they were at the workshop, we sell a full year mastermind and educational program. And the way I do the upsell is I call on our existing members and I say, please share your experience. And I kind of guide them. I ask them questions normally. And so what I did was I said, so who'd like to share? And before I could pick anybody, she bounded on stage and said, me. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. A lot of enthusiasm, I liked it. And she took one look around the room and she started crying. She started sobbing, bawling. I mean, I'm a very masculine man, red-blooded. Whenever I see a woman crying, I panic. And I panicked. I said, oh my God, why is she crying? Why? What did I do? That's the first place I went to in my head. But on the outside, I was cool as a cucumber. And so she turned around and she goes to me, Nicky, when you and your little son came to visit me, and my little son came to me in that excited way little boys do, said, Mommy, who are we going to go meet? And she said, oh, we're going to go meet Nicky Billou and his son. And then she said, between her sobs and her tears, all of a sudden, my son became very quiet and serious. And he lowered his voice and he said, oh, are we going to go get to meet the man who saved our family?
Oh.
And then I looked at her and I started to cry. And I don't cry in public. I don't. But I did that day.
She got you.
And we hugged and we both cried. And then she said to me, you didn't know this, but when I came to you first, I hadn't paid my mortgage in months. The bank was about to foreclose on our home. And my husband and I were fighting virtually every day in front of our 3 small children under the age of 12. It looked like we were going to break up. You literally helped us save our family. So that taught me a couple of things. First of all, you never know what someone's dealing with.
Yeah.
It may not be comfortable yet to share it with you. And it's very important to always come from service, from love, from making a difference. Whether that person does business with you or not is completely irrelevant. Love on them and serve them anyways. And, the second thing was that I got that my role in life is to lead and to serve. And I'm really good at getting people to win and win big. And I'm looking for the next person like her. Somebody who's really hurting, who's a really good person, and who's hoping against hope that the person that they're sitting in front of isn't full of crap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then here's the other thing. There were 8 people in the room that were new people. And the way we do it after these people speak, we hand out these registration forms. And after she spoke, I didn't ask anybody else to speak. That was just really a point, right?
She had the mic drop. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So normally, some people sign up, some people don't. And some people need a little bit of talking to, a little bit of persuasion. Okay. So here's what happened, though. Nobody needed persuasion this day. They all signed up as soon as they got the paper.
Yeah.
That had never happened before. 100% enrollment instantly on a very high ticket program. You know what I'm talking about? Like this is not a low ticket program. Let's just leave it at that. And there had been 2 fellas who had told me beforehand that they were not going to be signing up for my upsell. One fellow in particular came to me and went, Nick, give me. He said, I just want you to know, I know you got an upsell coming. I don't. See, I've been around the block before. Yep. And you need to know, I'm not going to be buying your upsell. I just don't want you to be disappointed. All right, buddy, whatever, right? He was the first fellow to sign up. And he walked over to me with that paper in his hand after he signed up. And he looked at me and he goes, you son of a bitch. Right? And he said, I wasn't going to sign up for your upsell. And I'm like, okay. He said, but I guess you're not full of crap. And then he said, and I do need some help. And that taught me something. It's not personal when someone says what that man said. He's probably been disappointed by some charlatan who took his money and didn't deliver for him. He's been burned. I don't blame him whatsoever. I've been burned. You've been burned. Yeah. We've all been burned. And that's just the way it goes. I can think of a couple fellas who I really like who burned me. They sold their programs, they took the money, and they didn't deliver shit. And that's just how.
And you can't let that affect your future decisions. I mean, it really comes down to the difference between letting life happen to you and you deciding to make life happen on your terms.
You got it. And so, what I really got out of this wonderful moment was that I know what I'm supposed to do. I know who I'm supposed to help. And I pray that God makes me worthy of this. And I also know I'm not taking things personally.
Yeah. Yeah. And on that beautiful note, where can people check you out if they want to learn more, if they are just hooked on this energy? Because you've got a lot of energy, man, and it's all for good. You really want to help people. So where can people check you out and learn more about what you do?
So my main website's called eCircle Academy. There's all kinds of resources there. And if someone wants to have a conversation, because I'm a believer in conversations where you get connected to somebody. And if someone is in a business situation where, they're looking for some answers, let's have that conversation. Let's go click on that button. We'll do what I call a success call. But if you just want to generally check me out, there's another website called Nicky360, Nicky360.com. That's got all the social medias and a whole bunch of other stuff there. So they can go on one of those.
Perfect. And we will put all of your links in the show notes so people can learn more. Thank you so much for being here today with me, Nicky.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show. It was a real honor to be here.
Hey, Ray here again. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and rate us in your favorite podcasting platform. Want to be a guest on the show or know someone who has an amazing story of entrepreneurship? Apply on our website at chironconsulting.us/podcast.